Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church, and I'm here today to share another parable with you from the 13th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. Now, yesterday we talked about the parable of the sower and the seed, and I directed you to where Jesus explains that parable. He's not going to do that for the ones we have the rest of the week. So we'll have to think ourselves. Today I want to look at chapter 24 in Matthew 13. And it reads this way. Here's another story Jesus told. The kingdom of heaven is like a farmer who planted a good seed in his field. But that night, as the workers slept, the enemy came and planted weeds among the wheat and then slipped away. When the crop began to grow and produce grain, the weeds also grew. The farmer's workers went to him and said, "Sir, the field where you planted that good seed is now full of weeds. Where did they come from?" The farmer explained, "An enemy has done this." So they asked, "Should we pull out all the weeds?" He said, No, don't do that. You'll uproot the wheat if you do. Let both grow together until the harvest. Then I will tell the harvesters to sort out the weeds, tie them into bundles, and burn them, and put the wheat in the barn. As someone who once was a farmer, I like stories about farming. I wasn't a crop farmer, so I didn't have this kind of experience, but I did have a really big garden, and we always had lots of weeds. I did my best to keep them out, and I do really good for a while. But the one thing I found out is if you want to keep the weeds out, you got to work at it every day. You can't take a day off. Well, here we have the story of a farmer who planted some wheat. And it says while the workers were sleeping that night, an enemy came in and planted weeds, seeds of weeds. And the next day or the next few days, they noticed that the weeds were growing in amongst the wheat. So they asked the farmer, says, "Shall we pull them all out?" He said, No, don't do that. You pull those out. You're going to pull out the good wheat too. We'll just wait till the harvest. Then I'll have the harvesters separate out the two, and we'll put the wheat in the barn and we'll burn up the rest. Well, I can kind of identify with this in my own life at my house. Some of you know my house. Some of you have been there. We're really blessed to live there. Um, but behind my house is a field, maybe 5 acres. It's part of the farm that's below me. And in that field, particularly, you can see it in the spring, are lots and lots and lots of dandelions. Well, guess what? The wind blows across that field straight into my yard. And you know what my yard has? Lots and lots and lots of dandelions. Now, I've been told, suggested that I need to do something to get rid of these things. And I thought, well, I probably could. But in the first place, there's still tons of them on the other side of this wire fence. That's not going to stop anything. And secondly, if I do all that, I'll root up the good grass that I do have. So I have embraced the idea that I like my dandelions. They don't really last with their shoots and their puffballs very long. And I cut them off so I have a minimal continual reseeding. But I just leave them there. And by this time of the year, I got a nice green area. Well, that reminds me of this parable. There's nothing worse, I think, than planting a crop as a farmer who would need the crop and have it totally inundated with weeds. But yet that's what happened here. And the first instinct of the workers is to pull them all out. But it's hard to get rid of all of them without also destroying a bunch of the weed. Now, when they mature and grow up enough, you can easily tell the difference. So the farmer says, no, I'll take care of it. Well, let's suppose here that the farmer is the Lord, and I think that's probably a good plan. And the enemy is probably the devil and the forces against God. And they're all planting seed. The seed they're planting is what's happening in our lives. They're planting happiness and joy and compassion. Some are planting revenge and arrogance and anger. And it all grows up in our lives. Now, when we're really young, maybe we could sort it out, but probably not. We just have to live with the weeds, knowing that at the end, they'll be taken care of. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting that we live with sin and garbage in our lives. I'm just saying that we're human beings. And because of that, we have this stuff. No, I don't like it. But I got to live here. What's important is to grow the wheat while the other stuff is happening. What's important is to make sure that the wheat matures so it can overwhelm the garbage. It's important for you and for me to fertilize compassion and grace and love and not encourage judgmentalism and anger and disgust. If we encourage the love and the grace, we'll grow a life full of that. If we encourage the other, well, we'll grow a life full of that too. And I know some, unfortunately, who have spent too much of their lives being mad and angry and trying to get even. I don't know where you are in your walk with God. You'll have to answer that one. But this parable tells us we kind of concentrate on fertilizing and growing the wheat, the goodness of the characters of God. And if we'll do that, in the end, we'll get the right harvest. Well, thanks for listening to me. Hope you have a wonderful day. If you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do everything we can, as fast as we can, to help meet your need. So until tomorrow, I wish you God's best and God's joy and all of his fullness of excitement. Take care. I'll talk to you again.